The rain was falling heavily on the big glass windows of the Harrison mansion that cold November evening. Inside the house, everything looked perfect. The floors were made of expensive marble, the walls were covered with beautiful paintings, and crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceilings. Anyone who walked into this house would think that the people living here had the most perfect life in the world. But behind all this beauty and wealth, there was a little girl whose life was nothing like the fairy tales she used to read before her mother died. Lily Harrison was only 9 years old, but her eyes already carried a sadness that no child should ever know. She was sitting at the grand piano in the music room, her small fingers moving across the black and white keys. She had been playing for almost 4 hours now, and her hands were shaking from exhaustion. The skin on her fingertips was red and painful, and she could feel tears building up in her eyes. But she knew better than to stop. She knew what would happen if she stopped. Standing behind her was Victoria, her stepmother. Victoria was a tall woman with sharp features and cold blue eyes that never seemed to warm up, not even when she smiled. She had married Lily's father, Robert Harrison, just 8 months ago, and since then, Lily's life had become a living nightmare. Victoria watched Lily's every move with a critical eye, her arms crossed over her chest, and her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. "Your rhythm is off again," Victoria said in her icy voice. "Start from the beginning, and this time do it properly." Lily's lower lip trembled, but she nodded and started playing the piece again. Her hands hurt so much that she wanted to scream. She had been practicing this same piece for weeks now, and no matter how hard she tried, Victoria was never satisfied. Nothing Lily did was ever good enough for her stepmother. Before Victoria came into their lives, Lily used to love playing the piano. Her real mother, Sarah, had taught her how to play when she was just 5 years old. Those were the happiest memories of Lily's life. She would sit on her mother's lap while Sarah guided her tiny fingers over the keys, singing softly and telling her that music was a way to express the feelings in your heart. Playing piano with her mother felt like magic. It felt like love. But Sarah Harrison had died of cancer when Lily was 7 years old. The day she died was the day Lily's world fell apart. She remembered sitting by her mother's hospital bed, holding her thin hand and listening to her whisper her final words. "Be brave, my little flower," Sarah had said with a weak smile. "Always remember that I love you, and never stop playing our music." Lily had promised her mother that she would keep playing. She had promised to be brave. But being brave was so hard when you were all alone in a house full of people who didn't care about you. After Sarah's death, Robert Harrison had changed completely. He had always been a busy man, running his massive technology company that was worth billions of dollars. But when Sarah was alive, he always made time for his family. He would come home early to have dinner with them. He would read bedtime stories to Lily, and he would take them on wonderful vacations to places all around the world. Robert had loved his wife more than anything, and when she died, a part of him died too. He buried himself in his work, spending longer and longer hours at the office. He stopped having dinner at home. He stopped reading stories to Lily. He barely even looked at her anymore because every time he did, he saw Sarah's eyes looking back at him, and the pain was too much to bear. Lily went from having 2 loving parents to having none at all. Her father was physically present sometimes, but emotionally, he was a million miles away. Then Victoria appeared in their lives. She was a former beauty queen who had been working as a public relations consultant for Robert's company. She was beautiful, charming, and knew exactly how to make Robert feel less lonely. Within 6 months of meeting her, Robert proposed, and Victoria became the new Mrs. Harrison. At first, Victoria pretended to be nice to Lily. She would bring her gifts and tell her how much she wanted to be her friend. She would smile at Lily whenever Robert was watching. But as soon as Robert turned his back or left for work, Victoria's smile would disappear, and her true face would come out. Victoria saw Lily as nothing more than an obstacle. She had married Robert for his money and his status, and she had no interest in being a mother to some other woman's child. The only reason she tolerated Lily was because she knew that Robert, despite his emotional distance, would never accept someone who was openly cruel to his daughter. So Victoria was clever. She hid her cruelty behind a mask of concern and discipline. "I just want what's best for Lily," Victoria would tell Robert whenever he was around. "She needs structure. She needs to develop her talents. I'm enrolling her in piano lessons because I know how much her mother loved music." Robert, too lost in his own grief to see what was really happening, believed every word Victoria said. He thought Victoria was trying to help Lily. He thought she was being a good stepmother. He had no idea that behind closed doors, Victoria was turning his daughter's life into a prison. The piano lessons were Victoria's favorite form of torture. She hired the strictest teacher she could find and insisted that Lily practice for at least 4 hours every single day. If Lily made a mistake, Victoria would make her start over. If Lily complained that her hands hurt, Victoria would tell her she was being lazy and dramatic. If Lily cried, Victoria would lock her in the music room until she stopped. "Your mother would be ashamed of you," Victoria would say whenever Lily struggled. "She was a wonderful pianist, and look at you. You can't even play a simple piece without making mistakes." Those words hurt Lily more than anything else. The thought that she was disappointing her mother, even in death, broke her heart into a million pieces. She would practice until her fingers bled, trying desperately to be good enough. But she never was, not for Victoria. Tonight was one of the worst nights yet. Lily had been playing for so long that she could barely feel her fingers anymore. The skin on her hands was raw and painful, and she could see small blisters forming on her fingertips, but Victoria showed no mercy. "Again," Victoria commanded, "and sit up straight, you look like a peasant." Lily straightened her back and started playing again. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't make a sound. She had learned that crying only made Victoria angrier. So she played and played, even as her hands screamed in pain, even as her heart broke a little more with every note. Outside the music room, the household staff went about their duties, pretending not to hear anything. They all knew what was happening to Lily, but none of them dared to speak up. Victoria had made it clear that anyone who complained about her would be fired immediately. And in this economy, no one wanted to lose their job in a millionaire's household. The only person who truly cared about Lily was the elderly housekeeper who had been working for the Harrison family for over 20 years, had known Lily since she was a baby. She had watched Sarah raise her with so much love and tenderness. And now, she watched helplessly as Victoria destroyed everything Sarah had built. Would often sneak into Lily's room at night with warm milk and cookies. She would sit by Lily's bed and stroke her hair, listening as the little girl cried herself to sleep. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," would whisper. "I wish I could help you. I wish your father could see what's happening." But Robert never saw. He was too busy with his work, too consumed by his grief, too blinded by Victoria's manipulation. His little girl was suffering right under his nose, and he had no idea. That night, after Victoria finally allowed Lily to stop practicing, the little girl walked slowly to her room. Her hands were so swollen that she couldn't even hold a glass of water. She looked at her fingers and remembered how her mother used to kiss them after every piano lesson. "You have magic hands, my love," Sarah would say. "One day, you're going to play the most beautiful music in the world." Lily climbed into her bed and pulled the covers over her head. She reached under her pillow and pulled out an old photograph of her mother. It was the only picture she had that Victoria didn't know about. In the photo, Sarah was smiling, her eyes full of warmth and love. Lily pressed the photo to her chest and closed her eyes. "I miss you, Mommy," she whispered into the darkness. "Please help me. I don't know how much more I can take." Little did Lily know that help was closer than she thought. Change was coming to the Harrison household, and it would come from the most unexpected place of all. 3 weeks had passed since that terrible night, and things in the Harrison mansion had only gotten worse. Victoria had become even more demanding, adding 2 more hours to Lily's daily piano practice. The little girl was now playing for 6 hours every single day, sometimes even more on weekends. Her hands were in constant pain, and she had started wearing bandages on her fingers to protect the blisters that never seemed to heal. School had become Lily's only escape. She attended Westbrook Academy, one of the most expensive private schools in the city. There, she could pretend to be a normal 9-year-old girl, at least for a few hours. She would laugh with her friends during lunch, pay attention in class, and forget about the nightmare waiting for her at home. But even at school, Lily couldn't completely hide her suffering. Her best friend, Emma, had noticed that something was wrong. Emma was a cheerful girl with curly red hair and freckles all over her face. She and Lily had been friends since kindergarten, and she knew Lily better than anyone else. She noticed that Lily had become quieter. She noticed that Lily winced whenever she had to write or hold a pencil. She noticed the bandages on her fingers and the sadness in her eyes. "Lily, what's happening to your hands?" Emma asked one day during recess. They were sitting under their favorite tree, watching the other kids play on the playground. "You always have bandages now. Did you hurt yourself?" Lily looked down at her wrapped fingers and hesitated. She wanted to tell Emma everything. She wanted to tell her about Victoria and the endless piano practice and how much everything hurt. But she was afraid. Victoria had warned her many times never to tell anyone about what happened at home. "If you say anything to anyone, I will make your life even worse," Victoria had threatened. "And no one will believe you anyway. They'll think you're just a spoiled little girl looking for attention." So Lily forced a smile and shook her head. "It's nothing," she said. "I just practice piano a lot and sometimes my fingers get sore. My stepmother says it's normal for serious musicians." Emma didn't look convinced, but she didn't push any further. She simply squeezed Lily's arm gently and said, "Well, if you ever want to talk about anything, I'm here. You're my best friend, Lily. I don't like seeing you sad." Lily felt tears pricking her eyes, but she blinked them away. "Thanks, Emma. You're the best friend anyone could have." Meanwhile, at Harrison Technologies, Robert Harrison was sitting in his corner office on the 42nd floor, staring at his computer screen without really seeing anything. He had just finished a 3-hour meeting about the company's new product launch, and his mind was exhausted. But it wasn't the work that was bothering him. It was something else entirely. For the past few weeks, Robert had been having strange dreams about his late wife Sarah. In these dreams, Sarah would appear to him looking worried and sad. She wouldn't say anything, but she would point toward something in the distance, as if trying to show him something important. Every time Robert tried to see what she was pointing at, he would wake up with his heart pounding and Sarah's face fading from his mind. Robert didn't believe in supernatural things. He was a logical man, a businessman who dealt with facts and numbers. But these dreams were starting to disturb him. He couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was trying to tell him something, that she was trying to warn him about something he couldn't see. He picked up the framed photograph on his desk. It was a picture of Sarah and Lily taken just a few months before Sarah got sick. They were at the beach, both of them laughing as waves crashed around their feet. Sarah's hair was blowing in the wind, and Lily was looking up at her mother with pure adoration. Robert's heart ached as he stared at the photo. He missed Sarah more than words could express, and seeing Lily's happy face in that picture made him realize something troubling. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen Lily smile like that. When had his daughter stopped smiling? When had her eyes lost their sparkle? Robert tried to think back, but the past 2 years were a blur of work and grief and just trying to survive each day. He had pushed away everything and everyone, including his own child. The guilt hit him like a punch to the stomach. "I've been a terrible father," he whispered to himself, still staring at the photograph. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I've failed you. I've failed our daughter." At that moment, his office door opened, and his personal assistant, Daniel, walked in. Daniel was a young man in his early 30s who had been working for Robert for 5 years. He was efficient, loyal, and one of the few people Robert actually trusted. "Mr. Harrison, your 3 o'clock meeting has been canceled," Daniel said. The investors from Tokyo had to reschedule due to a typhoon. We're looking at next week instead. Robert nodded absent-mindedly. Fine. Clear my schedule for the rest of the day, Daniel. I think I'm going to go home early. Daniel's eyebrows shot up in surprise. In all the years he had worked for Robert Harrison, he had never heard those words before. Robert never went home early. Robert barely went home at all. He practically lived at the office. "Is everything all right, sir?" Daniel asked cautiously. Robert stood up and grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I think it's time I found out." The drive home took about 45 minutes in afternoon traffic. Robert sat in the back of his black luxury car, his driver navigating through the busy streets. He watched the city pass by outside his window, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about Lily. When was the last time they had a real conversation? When was the last time he had asked her about school, about her friends, about her life? He couldn't remember. The realization made him feel sick. When the car finally pulled up to the mansion's grand entrance, Robert got out and stood there for a moment, looking at the house. This was supposed to be a home filled with love and laughter, but ever since Sarah died, it had become nothing more than a beautiful shell, empty and cold despite all its luxury. He walked inside, expecting to find the usual silence that filled the house these days, but instead, he heard something that made him stop in his tracks. It was the sound of piano music coming from the music room. The playing was hesitant and uneven, and he could hear the notes stopping and starting as if someone was struggling. Robert followed the sound, walking quietly through the hallway toward the music room. The door was slightly open, and he could see inside. What he saw made his blood run cold. Lily was sitting at the piano, her small body hunched over the keys. Even from behind, Robert could see that she was trembling. Her fingers moved slowly across the keys, and Robert noticed the bandages wrapped around them. Victoria was standing next to her, her face twisted with anger. "That was pathetic," Victoria spat. "A trained monkey could play better than you. What is wrong with you? Do you enjoy being a disappointment?" "I'm trying," Lily whispered, her voice cracking. "My hands hurt so much. Please, can I take a break, just for a few minutes?" Victoria laughed coldly. "A break? You've only been playing for 5 hours. Real musicians practice for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Your mother was a real musician. You're just a lazy, ungrateful child who doesn't appreciate everything I'm doing for you." Robert felt his heart stop. 5 hours. His 9-year-old daughter had been playing piano for 5 hours. He looked at her bandaged fingers, at her shaking shoulders, at the tears streaming down her face. And suddenly, everything became clear. The dreams about Sarah, the strange feeling that something was wrong, the guilt that had been gnawing at him for weeks. Sarah had been trying to warn him. She had been trying to show him what was happening to their daughter while he was too blind to see. He pushed the door open and stepped into the room. Victoria spun around, her expression changing from cruelty to surprise in an instant. When she saw Robert, her face transformed into a pleasant smile, as if nothing had been happening. "Robert, darling," she said sweetly. "You're home early. What a wonderful surprise. Lily and I were just finishing up her piano practice." Robert ignored her completely. His eyes were fixed on his daughter. Lily had turned around to face him, and what he saw broke his heart into a million pieces. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Her face was pale and thin, much thinner than he remembered. She looked like a child who had lost all hope. "Lily," Robert said softly, his voice trembling. "Sweetheart, come here." Lily hesitated, glancing nervously at Victoria. But something in her father's voice made her stand up from the piano bench. She walked toward him slowly, as if she couldn't believe he was really there, really seeing her for the first time in so long. When she reached him, Robert knelt down and took her hands in his. He unwrapped the bandages carefully, and what he saw made him gasp. Her fingers were covered in blisters and raw skin. Some of the blisters had broken open, and there were traces of dried blood. These were not the hands of a child who enjoyed playing music. These were the hands of a child who had been tortured. Robert looked up at his daughter's face, and for the first time in 2 years, he really saw her. He saw the pain, the fear, the loneliness. He saw how much she had suffered while he had been too consumed by his own grief to notice. "What has she done to you?" he whispered, his voice breaking. And then, for the first time since her mother died, Lily Harrison collapsed into her father's arms and let herself cry. She cried for all the hours of painful practice, for all the cruel words, for all the nights she had felt completely alone. And Robert held her tight, tears streaming down his own face, silently vowing that he would never let anyone hurt his daughter again. Victoria watched them with a frozen smile, but behind her eyes there was panic. She knew that everything was about to change. And for the first time since she had married Robert Harrison, she was afraid. The music room fell completely silent except for Lily's soft sobs against her father's chest. Robert held his daughter as if she might disappear if he let go, his mind racing with anger and guilt. How could he have been so blind? How could he have let this happen right under his own roof, while he buried himself in work and ignored everything else? Victoria stood frozen near the piano, her pleasant mask beginning to crack. She had spent months carefully building her image as the concerned stepmother, the devoted wife, the woman who only wanted what was best for everyone. And now, in just a few minutes, everything she had worked for was falling apart. "Robert, honey, please let me explain," Victoria started, her voice taking on a softer, more pleading tone. "I know this might look bad, but you have to understand. I was only trying to help Lily develop discipline. Her mother was such a talented pianist, and I thought—" "Stop." Robert's voice was low and dangerous. He didn't shout, but there was something in his tone that made Victoria take a step backward. He looked up at her, and for the first time, she saw the real Robert Harrison, not the grieving widower who barely paid attention to anything happening around him, not the workaholic businessman who spent 18 hours a day at the office. This was a father who had just discovered that his child had been abused, and his eyes burned with a fury that made Victoria's blood turn cold. "Don't you dare say my wife's name," Robert continued. "Sarah loved Lily more than anything in this world. She would never, ever have wanted this. She taught Lily to play because it brought them joy, not pain." Robert stood up slowly, keeping Lily close to his side. He could feel his daughter trembling against him, and it only made his anger grow stronger. All those months of Victoria pretending to care, all those times she had smiled and told him she was doing her best for Lily. It had all been lies, every single word. "I want you out of this house," Robert said, his voice steady and final. "Tonight." Victoria's eyes widened in shock. Whatever she had been expecting, it wasn't this. She had thought Robert might be upset, might scold her a little, but she never imagined he would actually ask her to leave. She had underestimated how much seeing Lily's injured hands would affect him. "You can't be serious," Victoria said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow and fake. "Robert, darling, you're overreacting. Children exaggerate. They get dramatic about little things. I've been nothing but good to your daughter. I've sacrificed so much of my time to help her become a better person, a more disciplined individual. Is this the thanks I get?" Robert's jaw tightened. He looked at his daughter, who was still crying softly, her bandaged hands hanging at her sides. Then he looked back at Victoria, and any sympathy he might have had disappeared completely. "Lily," he said gently, kneeling down to look into his daughter's eyes. "Sweetheart, I need you to be honest with me. I need you to tell me everything that's been happening. I promise I'll believe you. I promise I'll protect you. You don't have to be afraid anymore." Lily looked at her father with wide, tear-filled eyes. For so long she had wanted him to see the truth. For so long she had wished he would come home and notice what was happening. And now here he was, finally asking, finally listening. The words started pouring out of her like water from a broken dam. "She makes me practice for 6 hours every day," Lily said, her voice shaking. "Sometimes more on weekends. She says I'm lazy and stupid and that mommy would be ashamed of me. She locks me in the music room if I try to stop. She doesn't let me have breaks even when my fingers bleed. She says nobody would believe me if I told anyone because I'm just a spoiled little girl. With every word, Robert felt his heart shatter a little more. His daughter had been suffering for months, crying out for help in ways he had been too blind to see. And the woman responsible was standing right there, still trying to deny everything. Victoria's face had gone pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but Robert held up his hand to silence her. "Is there anything else, sweetheart?" he asked Lily softly. Lily nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. She threw away the picture of me and Mommy that used to be in my room. She said I needed to forget about the past and focus on becoming better. And she told that if she said anything to you, she would fire her and make sure she never got another job again. Robert closed his eyes for a moment, trying to control the rage building inside him. The photograph. He remembered that picture. It had been Sarah's favorite, taken on Lily's 6th birthday. Sarah had kept it in a beautiful silver frame on Lily's nightstand, and Victoria had thrown it away like it was garbage. "Enough," Robert said, standing up again. He pulled out his phone and pressed a number on speed dial. "Daniel, I need security at my house immediately, and get my lawyer on the phone. Tell him it's an emergency." Victoria's composure finally cracked completely. "Robert, please," she cried, rushing toward him. "You're making a huge mistake. That child is manipulating you. She's lying to get attention. I've done nothing wrong." Robert stepped back, positioning himself between Victoria and Lily. "Don't come near my daughter," he warned. "You've done enough damage. I want you gone by tonight, and trust me, my lawyers will be in touch." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Security arrived within 20 minutes, 2 large men in dark suits who positioned themselves near Victoria and made it clear she wasn't welcome in the house anymore. Robert's lawyer, Michael, arrived shortly after, already prepared with documents and legal advice. Victoria was escorted to her room to pack her belongings under the watchful eyes of security. She screamed and cried and threatened, but nothing worked. Robert had made up his mind, and there was nothing she could do to change it. While the adults dealt with the chaos, took Lily to the kitchen and made her a warm cup of hot chocolate, just like she used to do when Sarah was alive. The elderly housekeeper's eyes were filled with tears as she looked at the little girl she loved like her own granddaughter. "I'm so sorry, my sweet girl," said, her voice thick with emotion. "I should have said something sooner. I should have been braver." Lily shook her head and reached out to hold his wrinkled hand. "It's okay. You were always nice to me. You made me feel less alone." Pulled Lily into a gentle hug, careful not to touch her injured hands. "Your mother is watching over you, you know. She sent your father home today. I truly believe that." Lily thought about this and felt a small warmth spread through her chest. Maybe was right. Maybe her mother had found a way to help her, even from heaven. Later that evening, after Victoria had been removed from the property, and the house had finally grown quiet, Robert sat in Lily's room, watching her sleep. He had called a doctor who had examined her hands and prescribed medication for the blisters and raw skin. The doctor had also recommended that Lily see a counselor to help her process the trauma she had experienced. Robert held his daughter's hand gently, studying her peaceful face in the soft lamplight. She looked so much like Sarah. The same nose, the same chin, the same way her hair fell across her forehead when she slept. How could he have been so blind? How could he have let grief consume him so completely that he forgot to protect the most precious thing Sarah had left behind? "I'm so sorry, my little flower," Robert whispered, using the same nickname Sarah used to call her. "I failed you. I let my pain make me selfish and distant. But I promise you, things are going to be different from now on. I'm going to be the father you deserve." Robert made several decisions that night. He would reduce his working hours drastically. He would have dinner with Lily every single night. He would be present, really present in her life. He would make sure she never felt alone or afraid again. As for Victoria, Robert's lawyers were already preparing documents. He had discovered that Victoria had been using his money for various personal expenses he knew nothing about. She had been transferring funds to accounts in her name, buying expensive jewelry and designer clothes. The prenuptial agreement she had signed would protect Robert's assets, but he wanted more than that. He wanted to make sure she faced consequences for what she had done to his daughter. Outside, the rain had stopped and the clouds were beginning to clear. Through the window, Robert could see the first stars appearing in the night sky. He remembered how Sarah used to say that stars were the souls of people we loved, watching over us from heaven. "Thank you, Sarah," Robert whispered, looking up at the star. "Thank you for waking me up. I won't let you down again." In her sleep, Lily smiled for the first time in months. And in that moment, though he couldn't know it yet, Robert Harrison had taken the first step on a long journey to healing his family and making things right. 2 weeks had passed since Victoria was forced to leave the Harrison mansion, and the change in the house was remarkable. The cold, tense atmosphere that had hung over everything like a dark cloud was slowly lifting. Sunlight seemed brighter coming through the windows. Laughter could be heard echoing through the hallways again. And for the first time in what felt like forever, the house was starting to feel like a home. Lily's hands were healing nicely under the care of Doctor, a kind specialist who visited twice a week to check on her progress. The blisters were closing, the raw skin was being replaced with new healthy tissue, and the pain was fading day by day. But the wounds on her heart would take much longer to heal. She had started seeing a therapist named Dr. Wells, a gentle woman with warm brown eyes and a soft voice that made Lily feel safe. Their sessions took place in Dr. Wells's colorful office, filled with comfortable chairs, art supplies, and shelves lined with books and games. Dr. Wells never pushed Lily to talk about things she wasn't ready to discuss. Instead, she let Lily express herself through drawing, playing, and gradually, through words. "You know, Lily," Dr. Wells said during one of their sessions, "what happened to you wasn't your fault. Sometimes adults make bad choices, and children get hurt because of those choices. But that doesn't mean you did anything wrong." Lily was sitting cross-legged on a bean-bag chair, coloring a picture of a butterfly. She paused and looked up at Dr. Wells. "Victoria said I was lazy and ungrateful. She said my mommy would be disappointed in me." Dr. Wells leaned forward gently. "Do you believe that's true?" Lily thought for a long moment. For months, Victoria's cruel words had echoed in her mind, making her doubt herself, making her feel worthless. But since her father had finally seen the truth, something had started to shift inside her. "My mommy loved me," Lily said slowly. "She always said I was her perfect little flower. I don't think she would be disappointed in me for not wanting to hurt my hands." Dr. Wells smiled warmly. "That's absolutely right, Lily. Your mother loved you unconditionally, and you deserve to be loved and treated with kindness, not cruelty." Meanwhile, Robert Harrison was making good on all the promises he had made. He had restructured his role at the company, delegating many of his responsibilities to trusted executives so he could spend more time at home. He was there when Lily woke up in the morning. He was there when she came home from school. And every single night, without fail, they had dinner together at the big dining table that had been empty and silent for so long. At first, their conversations were awkward. Robert and Lily had grown so distant during the years of his grief that they almost felt like strangers to each other. But slowly, bit by bit, they started to reconnect. Robert asked about school and really listened to Lily's answers. He learned about her friends, her favorite subjects, her hopes and dreams. And Lily started to see her father not as the distant, sad man who was never around, but as someone who genuinely cared about her. One evening, after finishing a dinner of spaghetti and meatballs, which had prepared because it was Lily's favorite, Robert had a special surprise for his daughter. "Come with me," he said, a mysterious smile on his face. "I want to show you something." Lily followed her father through the house, curious and a little nervous. They walked past the living room, past the library, until they reached a door at the end of the hallway. It was a door that led to a room Lily had never been allowed to enter. Victoria had kept it locked, saying it was being used for storage. Robert pulled out a key and unlocked the door. When he pushed it open and turned on the light, Lily gasped in amazement. The room had been transformed into a beautiful art studio. The walls were painted a cheerful yellow, and large windows let in plenty of natural light. There were easels set up with fresh canvases, tables covered with every kind of art supply imaginable, and comfortable chairs where someone could sit and create for hours. "What is this?" Lily breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Robert knelt down beside her. "Your mother always said you had an artistic soul. She used to tell me that you could spend hours drawing and painting, lost in your own creative world. I thought maybe we could find something that brings you joy again, something that doesn't hurt your hands." Lily walked slowly into the room, touching the paintbrushes, the colored pencils, the soft clay waiting to be shaped. She picked up a tube of blue paint, her mother's favorite color, and felt tears springing to her eyes. But these weren't tears of sadness. These were tears of happiness. "Daddy," she said, turning to face him, "this is the best present anyone has ever given me." Robert opened his arms and Lily ran into them, hugging him tight. "I love you, sweetheart," he whispered into her hair, "and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for lost time." In the following days, the art studio became Lily's sanctuary. She spent hours there after school, painting pictures of flowers and butterflies, of sunny beaches and happy families. Dr. Wells encouraged this creative expression, saying it was an excellent way for Lily to process her emotions and heal from her trauma. But while things were getting better at home, trouble was brewing elsewhere. Victoria was not taking her removal from the Harrison family quietly. After being thrown out of the mansion, she had checked into an expensive hotel downtown, using credit cards that Robert had since canceled. When those stopped working, she had called several lawyers, trying to find someone who would help her fight for what she believed she deserved. "I was his wife," Victoria complained to anyone who would listen. "I gave up my career to take care of his household. I deserve compensation for everything I did." Most lawyers turned her away after hearing the full story. The allegations of child abuse were serious, and no one wanted to be associated with someone who had treated a child so cruelly. But finally, Victoria found someone willing to take her case. His name was Gregory Shaw, a sleazy attorney known for taking on difficult cases if the price was right. "Mrs. Harrison," Gregory said during their first meeting, leaning back in his leather chair with a confident smile, "I think we can make a case for spousal support. Your husband is worth billions. Surely you're entitled to some share of that wealth." Victoria smiled for the first time in weeks. "I knew I would find someone who understood. I want to make Robert Harrison pay for humiliating me. I want everyone to know that I was the victim here, not that lying child." Gregory nodded, already calculating his fees. "We'll file a countersuit. We'll claim that the child was exaggerating, that you were simply trying to provide discipline and structure. Rich families hire strict tutors all the time. We'll spin this in your favor." Back at the mansion, Robert was preparing for a very different kind of battle. His own lawyers had been gathering evidence of Victoria's cruelty, including statements from household staff who were finally willing to speak up now that Victoria was gone, provided detailed accounts of everything she had witnessed. The piano teacher Victoria had hired admitted that she had felt uncomfortable with how many hours Lily was being forced to practice. Even some of Victoria's former friends came forward with stories of how she had bragged about tricking Robert into marriage for his money. "We have a strong case," Michael told Robert during one of their meetings. "Not only can we protect your assets from her claims, but we can also pursue charges for child abuse. The evidence is overwhelming." Robert nodded grimly. "I don't care about the money, Michael. What I care about is making sure Victoria can never do this to another child. And I want Lily to know that what happened to her was taken seriously, that she was believed and protected. As the legal battles began to take shape, Lily remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in the adult world. She was too busy rediscovering joy. She was painting masterpieces in her new art studio. She was rebuilding her relationship with her father. She was healing, slowly but surely, from the wounds Victoria had inflicted. One afternoon, while working on a painting of her mother, Lily felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. She looked at the canvas, at the smiling face she had created from memory, and smiled back. "Hi, Mommy," she whispered. "I think things are going to be okay now. Daddy is taking care of me again, and I'm learning to be happy. I hope that makes you proud." A gentle breeze came through the open window, making the curtains dance softly. Lily liked to think it was her mother's way of saying yes. The courtroom was packed on the day of the first hearing. News of the case had spread quickly through social circles and media outlets. A billionaire tech CEO, his manipulative ex-wife, and allegations of child abuse made for sensational headlines. Reporters crowded outside the courthouse, cameras flashing as people entered and exited the building. Robert Harrison walked through the chaos with his head held high, flanked by his legal team. He wore a simple dark suit and a determined expression. This wasn't about winning or losing money. This was about justice for his daughter and making sure Victoria faced consequences for her actions. Inside the courtroom, Victoria sat at the defense table with Gregory Shaw, her attorney. She was dressed in a modest gray dress, her hair pulled back in a soft style that made her look innocent and harmless. Gone was the sharp, cold appearance she usually maintained. Today, she was playing the role of a wrongly accused woman, a victim of a vindictive child and a husband who had never appreciated her. Gregory Shaw had prepared a strategy designed to undermine Lily's credibility without directly attacking her. He planned to suggest that Lily had emotional problems after her mother's death, that she had resented Victoria from the beginning, and that she had exaggerated or even fabricated the abuse claims to get attention from her distant father. The judge, Honorable Foster, was a stern woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had presided over family court for over 20 years and had seen every kind of case imaginable. She called the courtroom to order and began the proceedings. Robert's lead attorney, Michael, presented the case methodically and thoroughly. He introduced medical evidence showing the extent of Lily's hand injuries. He called doctor to the stand, who that the injuries were consistent with extreme overuse and stress, far beyond what would be normal for a child learning piano. "In my professional opinion," doctor stated, "these injuries were caused by excessive, prolonged practice without adequate rest or care. A child this young should never have developed such severe damage to her hands." Next came testimony from household staff members who had witnessed Victoria's treatment of Lily. One by one, they took the stand and shared what they had seen. A maid described hearing Victoria yell at Lily through the music room door. A gardener mentioned how Lily would sometimes come outside with tears streaming down her face, trying to hide from her stepmother. And Dear Faithful gave the most powerful testimony of all. "I watched that sweet child suffer for months," said, her voice thick with emotion. "Mrs. Victoria kept her locked in that music room for hours and hours. I could hear Lily crying, begging to stop, but that woman wouldn't listen. She was cruel. She enjoyed having power over someone who couldn't fight back." The courtroom was silent as spoke. Even some of the reporters in the gallery looked moved by the elderly woman's words. Robert felt his eyes sting with tears as he listened to everything his daughter had endured while he had been too lost in his own world to notice. When it was Victoria's turn to defend herself, she put on a performance worthy of an actress. She spoke in a soft, trembling voice about how she had tried so hard to be a good stepmother. She talked about her sacrifice, leaving her career to dedicate herself to Robert's household. She shed carefully practiced tears as she described how Lily had never accepted her, no matter how hard she tried. "I only wanted what was best for Lily," Victoria said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "Her mother was such a talented pianist, and I thought encouraging Lily to develop that same talent would honor Sarah's memory. I never meant to hurt her. I didn't realize she was in so much pain. I thought she was being dramatic, the way children sometimes are." Gregory Shaw built on this narrative, suggesting that rich households often employed strict tutors and disciplinarians. He argued that what Victoria had done wasn't abuse, but simply firm parenting that had been misunderstood and exaggerated. "There are no witnesses to actual physical abuse," Gregory pointed out during his argument. "No one saw Mrs. Harrison strike the child. The injuries to her hands came from piano practice, which millions of children do every day around the world. Just because a child complained about being tired doesn't mean she was being abused." Judge Foster listened to both sides carefully, her expression unreadable. When all testimony had been given and both attorneys had made their closing arguments, she announced that she would take time to review all evidence before making her ruling. The courtroom would reconvene in 1 week. The following days were tense for everyone involved. Robert tried to maintain a normal routine for Lily's sake, but it was difficult. The case had attracted so much attention that reporters sometimes waited outside their gates, hopping for a glimpse of the family or a statement from Robert. Lily knew something big was happening, but Robert had tried to shield her from the details. He had explained that the lawyers were taking care of Victoria and that she would never be allowed to hurt Lily again. That was all the little girl needed to know for now. During this waiting period, something unexpected happened. Robert received a phone call from a woman named Jennifer Cole, Victoria's sister. Robert had never met her before since Victoria had claimed she wasn't close with her family. The call came late one evening, and Robert almost didn't answer when he saw the unfamiliar number. "Mr. Harrison," Jennifer's voice was nervous and hesitant. "My name is Jennifer Cole. I'm Victoria's younger sister. I know we've never met, but I heard about what's happening and I need to tell you something." Robert listened as Jennifer poured out a story that made his blood run cold. According to Jennifer, Victoria had been a troubled person her entire life. She had a history of manipulation and cruelty that went back to their childhood. She had tormented Jennifer growing up, using psychological warfare to make her life miserable. She had stolen from their parents, lied about everything, and left a trail of destruction wherever she went. "She married a wealthy man before you," Jennifer revealed. "His name was Harold Peters. They were together for 3 years before he divorced her. But here's the thing, Mr. Harrison. Harold had a daughter from a previous marriage, a sweet girl named. Victoria treated her terribly too. The same patterns of control and cruelty. Harold didn't see it at first, just like you didn't see it with your daughter." Robert felt sick to his stomach. What happened to? There was a long pause. "She's okay now, but it took years of therapy. She had nightmares for a long time. Harold felt so guilty for not protecting her. When I heard about your daughter on the news, I knew I had to reach out. I have Harold's contact information. He might be willing to testify about Victoria's pattern of behavior." Robert thanked Jennifer profusely and immediately passed the information to Michael. This was exactly the kind of evidence they needed, proof that Victoria had done this before, that it wasn't a misunderstanding or exaggeration, but a deliberate pattern of abuse against vulnerable children. Harold Peters agreed to provide testimony via video call since he lived in another state. He described his marriage to Victoria in chilling detail, how charming she had been at first, how the mask had slowly slipped to reveal something dark underneath. He talked about finding his daughter locked in her room crying, about the psychological games Victoria played, about the relief he felt when he finally divorced her. "The worst part," Harold said, his voice heavy with regret, "was that I didn't see it for so long. Victoria is very good at hiding her true nature. She's a predator who targets men with children because she enjoys having control over the weak and vulnerable. I'm so sorry you and your daughter went through this, Mr. Harrison. I wouldn't wish it on anyone." Armed with this new evidence, Michael filed an amended brief with the court. The pattern of behavior was now documented. Victoria couldn't claim this was a one-time misunderstanding when there was proof she had done the exact same thing to another child years ago. When the courtroom reconvened, the atmosphere was different. Judge Foster had reviewed all the evidence, including Harold Peters' testimony. She looked at Victoria with an expression that held no sympathy. The ruling was about to be delivered, and everyone held their breath, waiting to hear what justice would look like. Judge Foster looked out at the packed courtroom, her gaze sweeping from Robert's legal team to Victoria and her attorney. The silence was so complete that you could hear the soft humming of the air conditioning system. Everyone waited, barely breathing, for the words that would determine the outcome of this painful case. "I have reviewed all the evidence presented by both parties," Judge Foster began, her voice strong and clear. "I have listened to the testimony of witnesses, examined medical reports, and considered the arguments made by counsel. This is not a decision I take lightly." She paused, adjusting her glasses before continuing. "The evidence is overwhelming and deeply troubling. The medical testimony confirms that the child in question suffered significant physical harm as a direct result of excessive piano practice imposed upon her. The testimony of multiple household staff members paints a consistent picture of emotional abuse and neglect of the child's. And the testimony from Mr. Harold Peters regarding Mrs. Harrison's previous marriage establishes a clear pattern of predatory behavior toward children in her care." Victoria sat motionless at the defense table, her face pale. Gregory Shaw shifted uncomfortably in his seat, already knowing that his client's case had crumbled. "Mrs. Victoria Harrison," Judge Foster continued, now looking directly at Victoria, "your actions constitute child abuse under the laws of this state. You knowingly and deliberately caused physical and emotional harm to a vulnerable child entrusted to your care. Your attempts to frame this as strict parenting or discipline are rejected by this court. What you did was systematic cruelty, designed to break the spirit of a 9-year-old girl who had already lost her mother." Judge Foster's voice grew harder. "Furthermore, your lack of remorse is disturbing. Throughout these proceedings, you have attempted to discredit a child, to paint her as a liar and attention seeker, rather than accepting responsibility for your actions. This tells me everything I need to know about your character." The judge turned to address Robert. "Mr. Harrison, the court recognizes that you were deceived by your wife and that you took immediate action once you became aware of the situation. Your daughter is fortunate that you finally saw the truth and protected her." She then delivered her ruling. Victoria would receive no spousal support whatsoever. The prenuptial agreement would be enforced to the letter, meaning she would leave the marriage with nothing more than her personal belongings. Additionally, Judge Foster was referring the case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges of child abuse. Victoria would be required to have no contact with Lily Harrison, directly or indirectly, for the rest of her life. Any violation of this order would result in immediate arrest. "This court is adjourned," Judge Foster concluded, striking her gavel with finality. The courtroom erupted in murmurs and movement. Robert closed his eyes and exhaled a breath he felt like he had been holding for months. It was over. Victoria would face consequences for what she had done. Victoria sat frozen in her seat, her carefully constructed composure finally shattering. Her eyes were wide with shock and fury as security officers approached to escort her from the courtroom. She turned to look at Robert, and the mask fell away completely. The pleasant, charming woman she had pretended to be was gone, replaced by something twisted and hateful. "This isn't over," she hissed at him as she was led past. "You'll regret this. Both of you will regret this." Robert met her gaze calmly. "The only thing I regret is not seeing through you sooner. Stay away from my daughter." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Robert as he emerged. Cameras flashed, Microphones were thrust toward his face and questions were shouted from every direction. Michael stepped forward to address the media while Robert slipped into his waiting car, eager to get home to Lily. The drive home felt different somehow. The weight that had been pressing on Robert's chest for so long seemed lighter. Justice had been served. His daughter was safe. And now they could truly begin the process of healing. Lily was waiting in the foyer when Robert walked through the door. She had been nervous all day, knowing that something important was happening at the courthouse. Had tried to distract her with baking cookies and watching movies, but Lily couldn't focus on anything. When she saw her father's face, saw the relief in his eyes, she knew it was good news. She ran toward him and jumped into his arms, and Robert held her tight, spinning her around the way he used to when she was very small. "It's over, sweetheart," he said, setting her down and kneeling to look into her eyes. "Victoria can never hurt you again. The judge made sure of that." Lily's face lit up with a smile that Robert hadn't seen in far too long. "Really? She's really gone forever?" "Forever," Robert confirmed. "She's going to face consequences for what she did to you, and she's not allowed to come near you ever again. You're safe, Lily, I promise." Lily hugged her father again, burying her face in his shoulder. "Thank you, Daddy. Thank you for believing me." Those words pierced Robert's heart. The fact that his daughter felt the need to thank him for believing her was a painful reminder of how alone she must have felt all those months, suffering in silence, afraid no one would listen. "I'm sorry it took me so long," Robert said softly. "I should have seen it sooner. I should have protected you from the beginning." Lily pulled back and looked at him with wisdom beyond her years. "You're here now," she said simply. "That's what matters." The following weeks were a time of healing and rebuilding. The media attention gradually faded as new stories took the spotlight. Victoria was indeed charged with child abuse by the district attorney's office and was awaiting trial. Robert didn't follow the news about her case. He had better things to focus on. He threw himself into being the father Lily deserved. They had breakfast together every morning. He dropped her off at school himself, waving goodbye from the car like a regular parent. He attended every school event, every parent-teacher conference, every art show where Lily's work was displayed. Lily's talent for art was flourishing. Without the burden of forced piano practice hanging over her, she was free to explore her creativity. She painted flowers and animals and fantastical landscapes from her imagination. Her art teacher at Westbrook Academy was amazed by her progress and suggested she might want to enter some children's art competitions. "Would you like to do that?" Robert asked when Lily told him about the suggestion. "Enter competitions, I mean." Lily thought about it carefully. "Only if it's fun," she said. "I don't want to do anything that feels like before." Robert understood immediately. "Then we'll only do things that are fun. No pressure, no expectations. Art should make you happy." Lily smiled and nodded. "Can we go get ice cream to celebrate? To celebrate that everything is better now." Robert laughed and grabbed his car keys. "Ice cream sounds perfect." They drove to a small ice cream shop in town that Sarah used to take Lily to when she was little. It was a place filled with happy memories, a place Robert had avoided since Sarah's death because it hurt too much to remember. But now, sitting across from his daughter in a red vinyl booth, watching her enjoy a massive sundae with sprinkles and whipped cream, he realized that remembering Sarah didn't have to be painful. It could be beautiful. "Mommy used to bring me here," Lily said between bites. "She always got the strawberry flavor because she said it reminded her of summer." "She did," Robert agreed, his voice gentle. "She loved this place." Lily looked at her father with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think she's watching us? Do you think she's happy that we're okay now?" Robert reached across the table and took his daughter's hand. "I think your mother is watching over us every single day, and I think she's very proud of how strong and brave you've been." Lily's eyes sparkled with tears, but she was smiling. "I miss her a lot." Me too, sweetheart, me too. They finished their ice cream and drove home as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was a perfect ending to a day that marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. The nightmare was over. Victoria was gone. And the Harrison family, though it would never be whole again without Sarah, was finally starting to heal. 6 months had passed since the court ruling, and the Harrison household had transformed into something unrecognizable from the cold, tense place it had once been. Laughter echoed through the halls regularly now. The curtains were pulled open every morning to let sunlight flood through the windows. Flowers bloomed in vases throughout the rooms, and the delicious smell of cooking filled the air. Lily had blossomed in ways no one could have predicted. Her art had become something truly special. The paintings she created weren't just good for a child her age. They were genuinely remarkable, filled with emotion and beauty that moved everyone who saw them. Her art teacher had submitted several of her pieces to a regional children's art competition, and to everyone's delight, Lily had won first place in her age category. The award ceremony was held at a prestigious gallery downtown. Robert sat in the audience, beaming with pride as Lily walked up to receive her certificate and ribbon. She looked beautiful in a pale blue dress, her hair falling in soft curls around her shoulders. When she accepted her award and smiled for the photographs, Robert felt tears prick his eyes. This was the daughter Sarah had dreamed of raising. This was the happy, confident child that had been hidden away under layers of fear and pain. After the ceremony, Robert treated Lily and her best friend Emma to a fancy dinner at a restaurant with white tablecloths and candles on every table. The two girls giggled and chatted about school and friends and all the normal things 9-year-olds talked about. Watching them, Robert felt a profound sense of gratitude. Lily had come so far. Dr. Wells was pleased with Lily's progress as well. During their sessions, Lily was opening up more and more, processing the trauma of her time with Victoria in healthy ways. She had stopped having nightmares about being locked in the music room. She no longer flinched when she heard piano music. She was learning to trust again, to believe that she was safe and loved. Lily has shown remarkable resilience, Dr. Wells told Robert during one of their parent conferences. Children are often stronger than we give them credit for. With continued support and stability, I believe Lily will thrive. Robert was determined to provide exactly that. He had restructured his entire life around being present for his daughter. He had hired capable executives to manage the day-to-day operations of Harrison Technologies, freeing himself to work from home most days. His home office had a glass wall that looked out onto the garden, and he often saw Lily sitting outside painting or playing with the family's new golden retriever puppy, a birthday gift from Robert that Lily had named Sunshine. One evening, as Robert was reviewing some documents in his office, Lily knocked softly on the door and peeked inside. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" Robert immediately set aside his papers. "Of course, sweetheart, come in." Lily walked in and sat in the big leather chair across from his desk. She looked thoughtful, as if she had been contemplating something for a while. "Today at school, we talked about what we want to be when we grow up," she said. "Everyone said stuff like doctor or teacher or astronaut. When it was my turn, I said I want to be an artist." Robert smiled. "That sounds wonderful. You're certainly talented enough." Lily nodded but still looked uncertain. But then Tommy Martin said that being an artist isn't a real job. He said artists don't make money and they're just wasting time drawing pictures. Robert's smile faded slightly. He pulled his chair around the desk so he could sit closer to Lily and look at her directly. "Lily, listen to me. Tommy Martin doesn't know what he's talking about. Being an artist is absolutely a real job. Some of the most famous and successful people in history have been artists. And more importantly, success isn't just about making money. It's about doing something you love, something that makes you happy and fulfilled." Lily considered this. But what if I'm not good enough? What if I work really hard and still can't be a real artist? Robert reached out and took her hand. First of all, you're already a real artist. You won an award, remember. But let me tell you something, sweetheart. Your mother was one of the people I ever knew, and she always said that talent is only part of the equation. What really matters is passion and dedication. If you love something enough to work hard at it, you can achieve incredible things. He paused, thinking of Sarah and all the wisdom she would have shared with their daughter if she had lived. Your mother would have told you to follow your heart, Robert continued. And I'm telling you the same thing. If you want to be an artist, then be an artist. I will support you every step of the way. And if you change your mind someday and want to be an astronaut or a doctor or anything else, I'll support that too. What matters is that you're happy. Lily's face brightened. Thanks, Daddy, I feel better now. She hopped off the chair and started to leave, but then she turned back with a mischievous grin. Can I paint your portrait? I've been practicing faces, and I think I'm getting pretty good. Robert laughed. I would be honored to be your subject. Just promise not to make me look too old. The next weekend, Lily set up her easel in the garden and spent an entire afternoon painting her father's portrait. Robert sat as patiently as he could while Lily studied his face with intense concentration, mixing colors on her palette and applying careful brushstrokes to the canvas. When she finally revealed the finished portrait, Robert was genuinely amazed. It wasn't just a good painting for a child. It was genuinely impressive. Lily had captured something in his eyes, a mixture of love and sadness and hope that he hadn't even realized was there. Lily, this is incredible, he said honestly. You've really caught something here. You're going to do amazing things with your talent. Lily beamed with pride. I want to hang it in your office so you can see it when you're working. And when you miss me, you can look at it and remember that I painted it with love. Robert felt his heart swell. That's the perfect place for it. Meanwhile, Victoria's criminal trial had concluded the previous month. Robert hadn't attended, not wanting to bring that negativity back into their lives, but Michael had kept him informed of the proceedings. Victoria had been found guilty of child abuse and sentenced to 2 years in prison, followed by 5 years of probation. She would also be required to register as a child abuser, which would follow her for the rest of her life. Part of Robert felt that the sentence wasn't enough, that 2 years in prison was a small price to pay for the suffering she had caused his daughter, but another part of him was simply relieved that it was over. Victoria was locked away, unable to hurt anyone else for now, and Lily could grow up knowing that justice had been served. Jennifer, Victoria's sister, had reached out to Robert once more after the trial. She thanked him for pursuing the case, saying that Victoria had finally been held accountable for her actions after years of getting away with cruel behavior. Jennifer also shared that she had reconnected with Harold Peters and his daughter. They had formed a small support group for people who had been hurt by Victoria's manipulation. It's strange, Jennifer wrote in her email, but something good has come out of all this pain. We've all found each other and realized we're not alone. Is doing well, by the way. She's in college now, studying psychology. She wants to help other abuse survivors. She says that if even one good thing can come from what she went through, it will have been worth something. Robert shared parts of this message with Lily in age-appropriate terms. He wanted her to know that she wasn't the only person Victoria had hurt, and that all of them were healing and moving forward. Other people went through what I did, Lily asked, her eyes wide. Unfortunately, yes, Robert said gently. But they're all doing better now, just like you, and one girl even grew up to help others because of what she experienced. She turned something painful into something good. Lily thought about this for a long time. Maybe I can do that too someday, she said finally. Maybe I can help kids who are sad or scared through my art. I could paint pictures that make them feel happy and safe. Robert smiled, feeling an overwhelming love for this wise, compassionate child. I think that's a beautiful goal, sweetheart. Your mother would be so proud of you. That night, as Robert tucked Lily into bed, she reached up and hugged him tight. I love you, Daddy. Thank you for being the best father ever." Robert kissed her forehead. "I love you too, my little flower, sweet dreams." As he turned off the light and closed the door, Robert felt a sense of peace wash over him. The road to this moment had been long and painful, but they had made it through. And whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together. 3 years had flown by since Victoria's trial, and Lily Harrison was no longer the frightened little girl who cried herself to sleep in a dark mansion. She was now 12 years old, confident and creative, with a smile that could light up any room she walked into. Her transformation was nothing short of miraculous, a testament to the healing power of love, support, and time. Lily had continued to excel in her art, winning numerous competitions and even selling some of her paintings at local charity auctions. The money she raised went to organizations that helped children who had experienced abuse, something Lily felt passionate about after her own experience. She had discovered that using her talent to help others gave her a sense of purpose and fulfillment that nothing else could match. Her relationship with her father had grown stronger than ever. Robert was a different man from the workaholic who had retreated into grief after Sarah's death. He was present, engaged, and genuinely happy. He had learned to balance his professional responsibilities with his personal life, proving that it was possible to be a successful businessman and a devoted father at the same time. One autumn afternoon, Robert came home early from the office with an excited look on his face. Lily was in her art studio, working on a new painting of Sunshine, who was now a fully grown golden retriever lounging in a patch of sunlight. "Lily, can you come to the living room?" Robert called out. "I have something important to tell you." Lily set down her paintbrush and wiped her hands on her smock before heading to the living room. She found her father sitting on the couch, looking both nervous and happy, which was an unusual combination. "What's going on, Dad?" she asked, sitting down beside him. Robert took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about something for a while now, and I wanted to talk to you about it before making any decisions. Your opinion matters to me more than anything." Lily's curiosity was piqued. "Okay, I'm listening." "You know how I've been having dinner sometimes with Caroline from work," Robert began. Lily nodded. Caroline Mitchell was the chief marketing officer at Harrison Technologies. Lily had met her several times at company events and had always liked her. She was warm and genuine, with a kind smile and an easy laugh. She never treated Lily like a child to be tolerated but spoke to her like a real person. "Well," Robert continued, "over the past year, our friendship has grown into something more. I care about Caroline very deeply, and she feels the same way about me." Lily felt her stomach tighten slightly. The memory of Victoria still lingered, a shadow that occasionally darkened her thoughts, but she forced herself to listen without jumping to conclusions. "Are you asking if you can date her?" Lily asked carefully. Robert shook his head. "Actually, I wanted to ask if you'd be okay with me inviting her to spend more time with us. I want you to get to know her better before anything becomes more serious. Your happiness and comfort are my priority, Lily. If this doesn't feel right to you, we'll figure something else out." Lily appreciated that her father was asking her opinion, that he wasn't just announcing something and expecting her to accept it. This was so different from how Victoria had come into their lives, charming Robert behind closed doors and then appearing suddenly as his new wife. "Can I meet with her?" Lily asked. "Just her and me, I mean, without you there. I want to talk to her by myself." Robert looked surprised but nodded immediately. "Of course, I'll arrange it whenever you're ready." A few days later, Lily met Caroline for lunch at a cozy cafe near her school. Caroline arrived looking slightly nervous, which Lily found oddly reassuring. It meant she took this seriously, that she understood how important it was. "Thank you for meeting me," Caroline said as they sat down at a corner table. "I know this must feel strange." "A little," Lily admitted, "but I wanted to talk to you, to understand who you are." Caroline nodded. "That's completely fair. Ask me anything you want. I'll be completely honest with you." Lily had prepared a list of questions in her mind. She started with the most important one. Why do you like my dad? And I mean really, not the business stuff. Caroline smiled softly. Your father is the most genuine person I've ever met. In a world full of people who are always trying to impress or manipulate, he's just real. He loves deeply, he's loyal, and he talks about you constantly, by the way. Every conversation somehow comes back to Lily and how proud he is of you. Lily felt warmth spread through her chest, but she wasn't finished yet. What do you think about kids? About me being in the picture? Caroline leaned forward, her expression serious. Lily, I want you to know something. I would never try to replace your mother. From everything your father has told me, Sarah was an amazing woman. Her memory deserves to be honored, and I would never try to be something I'm not. She paused, choosing her words carefully. If your father and I do become more serious, I want to be your friend. I want to be someone you can trust and rely on. But that will only happen if you want it to happen. I'm not going to force anything or pretend to be someone I'm not. I just want to be honest with you. Lily studied Caroline's face, looking for any signs of deception or manipulation. But all she saw was sincerity. Caroline's eyes were open and warm, without the cold calculation that had always lurked behind Victoria's pleasant expressions. My stepmother hurt me, Lily said quietly. She made me play piano until my hands bled. She told me my mother would be ashamed of me. Caroline's face fell with genuine sadness. I know, your father told me what happened. I'm so sorry, Lily. No child should ever go through what you experienced. I'm still scared sometimes, Lily admitted. Not of her anymore, but of trusting new people. Caroline reached across the table and gently placed her hand near Lily's, not touching her but offering connection. That makes complete sense. Trust has to be earned, especially after someone has broken it. I don't expect you to trust me right away. All I ask is that you give me a chance to prove myself over time. Lily looked at Caroline's hand, then up at her face. Something in her heart softened. This woman wasn't Victoria. This woman wasn't pretending to be perfect. She was just being real. Can I ask you one more thing? Lily said. Anything. Do you really care about my dad, or do you just want his money? I have to ask because I have to know. Caroline didn't look offended. She seemed to understand completely why Lily needed to hear the answer. Lily, I have my own successful career. I've worked hard for everything I have, and I don't need anyone else's money. What I feel for your father has nothing to do with business or wealth. I love him because of who he is, not what he has. She paused, her eyes glistening slightly. And honestly, I love how much he loves you. A man who puts his daughter first, who restructured his entire life to be there for her. That tells you everything about his character. That's the man I fell in love with. Lily felt tears forming in her own eyes, but she blinked them back and smiled. Okay, she said softly. I think I'm willing to give you a chance. Caroline's face lit up with a relieved smile. Thank you, Lily. That means more to me than you know. Over the next several months, Caroline became a regular presence in the Harrison household. She joined them for dinners, attended Lily's art shows, and even started learning about painting so she could understand Lily's passion better. She never pushed or tried too hard. She just showed up consistently and proved through her actions that her intentions were genuine. Lily found herself actually enjoying Caroline's company. They had interesting conversations about art and life. Caroline shared stories about her own childhood growing up in a small town, about the struggles she faced becoming a successful woman in a male-dominated business world. She treated Lily like an intelligent young person capable of handling real discussions about real topics. One evening, while Caroline was helping Lily organize her art supplies in the studio, they started talking about Sarah. I wish I could have known her, Caroline said sincerely. Your father speaks about her with such love, and judging by the wonderful person you've become, she must have been an incredible mother. Lily smiled, picking up a photograph of Sarah that she kept on her desk. She was. She taught me that art is a way to express what's in your heart. That's why I paint feelings, not just pictures. Caroline looked at the photo with respect. That's beautiful wisdom, and I can see how it influences your work. Lily hesitated, then made a decision. She opened a drawer and pulled out a small painting she had been working on secretly. It showed two flowers growing side by side in a garden, one pink and one yellow, both reaching toward the sun. I made this for you, Lily said shyly. The pink flower is Mom and the yellow one is you. I wanted to show that there's room for both of you in our garden. Caroline's eyes filled with tears. She accepted the painting with trembling hands. Lily, this is the most precious gift anyone has ever given me. I will treasure it forever. In that moment, watching Caroline hold her painting with such reverence, Lily knew that her heart had finally opened up again. She was ready to let someone new into her life. And this time, it felt right. 10 years had passed since that terrible night when a little girl sat at a piano with bleeding fingers and a broken heart. So much had changed since then that sometimes Lily could hardly believe it was the same lifetime. She was now a young woman of 19, standing at the threshold of her dreams with the whole world spread out before her. Lily Harrison had graduated at the top of her class from Westbrook Academy and had been accepted into one of the most prestigious art schools in the country. Her portfolio had impressed the admissions committee so much that they had offered her a full scholarship, recognizing her exceptional talent and unique artistic voice. Her paintings had already been featured in several galleries, and art critics were calling her one of the most promising young artists of her generation. But today wasn't about art school or galleries or the future. Today was about family and love, and celebrating the bonds that had grown stronger through years of healing and trust. Robert Harrison and Caroline Mitchell were getting married. The ceremony was being held in the garden of the Harrison mansion, transformed into a wonderland of white flowers and soft music. The autumn sun cast golden light through the trees, making everything look magical. Chairs were arranged in neat rows, filled with friends and family who had gathered to witness this joyful occasion. Lily stood at the front as Caroline's maid of honor, a position she had accepted with genuine happiness. She wore a beautiful pale blue dress that matched her eyes, her hair swept up in an elegant style. In her hands, she held a bouquet of pink and yellow flowers, representing the two women who had shaped her life in different but equally important ways. As she watched her father standing nervously at the altar, waiting for his bride, Lily felt overwhelmed with gratitude for how far they had come. She remembered the man he used to be, lost in grief and work, barely present in her life. And she looked at the man he had become, radiant with happiness, eyes shining with love as he waited to marry the woman who had brought joy back into their home. The music changed, and everyone stood as Caroline appeared at the end of the aisle. She looked absolutely stunning in a simple ivory dress, her face glowing with happiness. She had chosen not to wear an elaborate gown or heavy jewelry. That wasn't who she was. She was elegant in her simplicity, beautiful in her authenticity. As Caroline walked down the aisle, her eyes met Lily's, and they shared a smile that spoke volumes. Over the past years, they had developed a bond that was precious and real. Caroline had never tried to replace Sarah, and Lily had never asked her to. Instead, they had built something new together, a relationship based on mutual respect, genuine affection, and shared love for the man who had brought them together. The ceremony was beautiful and heartfelt. Robert and Caroline had written their own vows, and there wasn't a dry eye in the garden as they spoke of love found after loss, of second chances and new beginnings. When they finally kissed as husband and wife, cheers erupted from the guests, and Lily clapped with tears streaming down her face. At the reception that followed, Lily was asked to give a speech. She stood up nervously, looking out at the sea of faces, many of whom she had known her entire life. Sat near the front, now retired but still very much part of the family, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Emma sat beside her own parents, giving Lily an encouraging thumbs up. "When I was 9 years old," Lily began, her voice steady despite her nerves, "my life fell apart. I lost my mother to cancer, and then I lost my father to his grief. I felt completely alone in the world, even though I was surrounded by luxury and wealth. I learned that money can't buy happiness, can't protect you from pain, can't make people love you." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Then things got worse. Someone came into my life who made me feel worthless, who hurt me in ways that took years to heal from. I thought my story would be a tragedy, a tale of a little girl who lost everything and never recovered." Lily looked at her father, whose eyes were bright with emotion. "But my father woke up. He saw what was happening and he saved me. He chose to be present, to be a real parent, to put me first. And slowly, we rebuilt our family together." She turned to Caroline. "And then Caroline came into our lives. I'll be honest, I was scared at first. I didn't know if I could ever trust another person in that role. But Caroline was patient. She was honest. She showed me through her actions, not just her words, that she was someone I could count on." Lily smiled, her tears now flowing freely. "Caroline, you've never tried to replace my mother, and I love you for that. Instead, you've shown me that the heart has unlimited capacity for love. I can love and miss my mom while also loving you. There's room for everyone." She raised her glass. "To my father and Caroline, may your marriage be filled with joy, laughter, and love. You both deserve every happiness the world has to offer. I love you both so much." The guests raised their glasses and toasted the happy couple. Robert got up from his seat and hugged his daughter tightly, unable to speak through his tears. Caroline joined them, and the three of them held each other in an embrace that represented everything they had built together. Later that evening, as the reception continued with dancing and celebration, Lily slipped away to a quiet corner of the garden. She found a bench beneath an old oak tree and sat down, looking up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. She thought about her mother, about Sarah Harrison, who had loved her so completely, and whose death had started this entire journey. She wondered what her mother would think if she could see them now, see how they had survived and thrived despite everything. "I did it, Mom," Lily whispered to the stars. "I found happiness again. Dad found happiness again. We're okay." A gentle breeze rustled through the leaves above her, and Lily smiled, choosing to believe it was her mother's way of responding. She pulled out her phone and looked at the photos she had taken throughout the day. Her father laughing with Caroline, crying happy tears, Emma dancing terribly and not caring at all. These were the moments that mattered, the connections between people who loved each other. Lily had learned so much in her 19 years of life. She had learned that pain can teach us compassion. She had learned that healing is possible even from the deepest wounds. She had learned that family isn't just about blood, but about the people who choose to show up for you again and again. Most importantly, she had learned that the darkest chapters of our lives don't have to define the rest of our story. They can be the foundation upon which we build something beautiful. As she sat there reflecting, her father appeared beside her. He had taken off his jacket and loosened his tie, looking relaxed and content in a way she hadn't seen since her childhood. "There you are," Robert said softly, sitting down next to her. "Everything okay?" Lily nodded. "Everything is perfect. I was just thinking about how far we've come." Robert put his arm around his daughter and looked up at the same stars. "Your mother would be so proud of you, Lily. The woman you've become, the art you create, the way you've opened your heart after everything you've been through. You're the best thing I ever did in my life." Lily leaned her head on her father's shoulder. "We saved each other, Dad. That's what families do." They sat together in comfortable silence, father and daughter, watching the stars and listening to the distant sounds of music and laughter from the reception. Tomorrow, Lily would leave for art school, starting a new chapter of her own. Robert and Caroline would begin their married life together. Changes were coming, as changes always do. but some things would never change. The love between a father and daughter, the memory of a mother who had left too soon, the knowledge that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Lily smiled, feeling at peace with everything that had happened and excited for everything that was to come. Her story had begun with cruel hands forcing her to play music until she bled. But it was ending with healing, with love, with the beautiful art she created from her pain. And somewhere out there among the stars, she knew her mother was watching, proud of the woman her little flower had become.